Hello, and thank you so much for joining us today for our beautiful night flight painting. We're going to paint all together today, going step by step and brush by brush. As we go along, if you want to change up any of the colors on this one, it definitely can. Speaking of colors, let's take a look at our paints. So in our little palette, we have this little top plate. We're going to set that aside for now. I'm going to have these little cups. I'm going to take out a little of that paint and put that on that empty plate. And we have some colors here. So we have black and white. We have yellow, green, a lighter blue, a darker blue, and an orange. We also have some brushes. We'll need a large, medium, and small brush, a paper towel to dry off our brushes, and a little cup of water to wash our brushes. We're going to start with our biggest brush, give it a little dip in the water, get things flowing, tap on the paper so it's not all drippy, and we're going to start with our moon. So I'm going to find my bright lemony yellow, just by itself. I'm going to find my moon, and I'm going to fill it in. And then I'm going to go past my moon. This is going to help make that little glow around. Then I'm going to wash off my brush. I washed off my brush, I dried off my brush. And I'm going to go to my green next. I'm going to go to my green, that tealy green, just by itself. And I'm going to make another circle around my yellow one. And I'm going to fill it in right to the edge of the yellow. We're going to blend these together just a little bit. Notice that I am going right over top those little dragonfly friends. You'll be able to see through your paint, and we can put them back on later. Then we're going to wash off our brush. So I'm going to get, with a clean brush, I'm going to get a little bit more yellow back on my brush. I'm going to find that edge between the two. Half on my green, half on my yellow. I'm gonna go around and around, right at the edge between the two, and I'll bring it in, right to the edge of that circle. It's okay if it goes a little bit inside the circle. I'm gonna go all around. We're gonna go dark blue next. So again, I washed off my brush. I'm going to find this darker of the two blues. I'm going to scoop some over. And I'm going to darken it a little bit, just a little bit of black paint, into all that darker of the two blues to make a really nice kind of navy blue. And I'm going to make a big smiley face. And we're going to fill in everything around our green circle. Right over top, all our trees, all our little dragonflies, all the way around, all the way to the corners. Smooth out your paint, go around and around in circles, fill in all that white space. So while I have this color on my brush, I'm also going to paint my side edges wherever I have this blue. I'm going to wrap it around, paint that little side edge to match. I'm going to get all that top edge. And I'm going to get this little side edge too. I washed off my brush, I dried off my brush. I'm going to go back to my green. And we're going to blend again. Place your brush half on the green, half on the blue, going around and around along that edge between. I'm going to bring some of this new greeny blue color a little further in towards the moon. till it's as blended as you want. My last little color I'm going to fill in all the rest with. I'm going to do a little of the lighter of the two blues just by itself. And that's going to be for all the rest. We're gonna blend again with that dark blue. Same big brush. Got some more dark blue on my brush. Right at that edge between the two. Nice big curvy brush strokes. Guide a little of that darker blue down into the lighter blue. A little of that lighter blue up into your darker blue. Double check your side edges. Make sure you have all those side edges filled in. So after that, we have all of our sky kind of layered in. We're going to sweep in a little bit of cloud. If you like your background just the way it is, don't have to mess with, but I'll show you how to add that part if you like. I'm going to use my big brush still, so I did wash it off and I dried it off. I'm going to get a little bit of white paint just by itself. And I'm going to use the thinner side of that brush instead of a flat brush, holding it on its edge. And I'm going to do little streaks. Little streaks. Some a little longer, some a little shorter. Going all the way around. You can go as far into the moon as you like. And then I'm going to soften those up a little bit. Okay, scratch off all that extra white. Kind of with a flat brush instead of the thin part. Flat brush. I'll just smooth them out. And that kind of blends them in to my background. A little softer. I'm going to do the same at the bottom here. But I'm going to make them a little chunkier, so I'm going to use a flat brush this time. I'm going to sweep it in. The more you go over one of those little marks, the more it'll blend in with your blue and become a little softer looking. So you can control how light or dark things you're getting by how many times you're sweeping over them with your brush. Put as little or as much as you want. So I'm going to be all done with my big brush. I am going to switch to my small brush and we're going to fill in kind of a base layer of white on our little dragonflies. So I'm going to get a little bit of white paint and I'm just going to, I have a lot of white paint on my brush. I'm going to lay it on a little thick. Our background's going to be a little bit wet still. So laying it on thick will kind of be a nice little buffer layer. If it is blending a lot with your background, take a little break, let things dry. Or if you have a blow dryer, you can bring it on over to your blow dryer, kind of set this layer. These guys will be much easier to layer on top of your background colors. My first wing is a little bit bigger. And then I have a smaller wing underneath it. One more. Okay, we're gonna let those dry for a little while, and we're gonna go over here to our trees. I'm gonna switch to my medium brush for the thicker parts of the trees, kind of the trunks of the trees, and then we'll go to our smaller brush. So I'm gonna start with my medium brush. I'm gonna get a little bit of just black paint by itself. And then wherever the thickest parts of the trees are, whenever it starts to feel like it's thinning out, kind of stop right about there, and we'll switch to our smaller brush for those guys. You can have nice little bumpy edges on your trees. It can be smooth, however you like. I'm gonna fill in our little branches. A lot of sky. And now let's switch. So for all my smaller little branches, I'm going to switch to my smallest little brush. And there's a little trick for small little lines whenever you're using black paint or a really dark color. I'm going to scoot over a little bit of that color, scoot over a little bit of black, and then I'm going to water it down. So I'm going to dip my brush into water, let that little drip happen. Another one. See if you can see it. Shake it on there. And then I'm going to mix that water into that little pile. I want it kind of flowier looking, but the test is if you turn it, I don't want to have a drip, because if I have a drip here, I might get a drip there. I want it to stay in place, be a little flowier. To sharpen that little brush, I'm going to take it to the edge of my plate and I'm going to twist and drag, twist and drag, twist and drag. That's going to give you a nice little point on the end of that bristle. And then we are going to have some fun with branches. So a good place to start is where you left off. You can grow these out longer. If you can't see your lines underneath, you can make your own lines. That's okay. So I'm kind of branching out. Notice these are all very much Y shapes or V shapes. I'm going to keep making those types of branches. So Y shapes and V shapes. Follow along your branch and then bring it out. Y shape. Follow, bring it out. So they're kind of going up and out. I'm going to add to these guys. Keep grabbing more paint on your brush. You can bring it across your moon. Take it nice and slow. Y shapes, V shapes. And kind of spread out your branches. Say I wanted to put another one over here. I wouldn't want to put it directly on the other side because that might look a little funny, but it looks a little bit more natural if I go up a little higher and add one, or if I go a little lower and add one. Looks just a little bit more flowy. You can add as many or as few as you want. They can overlap. That's okay, trees do that. I'm guiding them up. Whenever you have a good amount, then we're good. So those are gonna dry. I'm gonna come back over here to my little dragonflies. I'm sticking with my small brush. I'm gonna go with my bright yellow. Make sure you wash it really well. Still had a little bit of black on mine. Give it a good scrub, dry it off. And I'm gonna have a good amount of paint on my brush, kind of thick. I'm gonna kind of smear it on to those little guys. Just because this little brush is a little bit scratchy. So if you don't have too much paint on your brush, it'll kind of scratch away a little bit and you'll see more blue. So I'm just kind of like smearing it on and then leaving it alone. If you want it to cover up a little bit more, just let it hang out there for a little bit, let it dry a little, blow dry it, and then add another layer. The more you go over the same spot, the more it'll kind of show more blue. Laying it on thick. And dabbing it on those little dots. The body, along the wings. There we are. And lastly, I'm going to add a little hint of orange on those, give them a little color. So just like I did with the yellow, I'll probably do a little less with the orange, but lots of paint. Just giving it a little sweep, a little accent, a little dab in those little dots for the body. Again, thick paint. Dab it on each of those. Cool. So our little dragonflies are complete. Now all we need to do is fill our sky with stars. So a trick for that, instead of the brushy part, I'm going to turn my brush around and use the back handle. So I'm going to do some white stars. If you want, you can do some yellow, also different colors. But I'm going to use a little bit of white paint. I'm going to dip the back handle and I'm just going to pop them on. So I'm going to dip and dot. It doesn't hold that much paint, so every 2 or 3 maybe dots, get a new little dip. Putting this mostly on the darker spots in my sky, and then a little less as I get a little closer to my moon. And down here. And lastly, but not leastly, we need our little artist signature. I'm gonna flip my brush back around. I'm gonna grab a little bit of black paint, and you can put on your whole name, you can put on your initials, a date, whichever you like. I usually put my initials on there. And we are complete. And they are complete. beautiful little magical forests over here. So we need to find a good spot for them up on the wall. Thank you so much for painting with me today. I hope you can come back and paint with me soon. Bye, everyone.